Hello YouTube, it's Stephanie. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys had a great Easter weekend. I would love to know what you guys did this weekend to celebrate. So I talked a little bit about my weekend on Instagram yesterday or on Sunday, on Easter Day. I talked about my religion or how I felt about Christianity. As many of you know, I am Christian and I am very open about that. I have grown up in the Baptist church my whole life. I've grown up, my family's been very close to God, but as I got older, as all of this started to happen with what I've talked about with my eating disorder, I really grew apart from God. And last year, I feel like I really started to gain my relationship back with God. I really started to build that relationship again. But I feel like lately, I have just really questioned it a lot. I've talked about this a few times on Instagram, but with my emotions and my thoughts and the way that I've been feeling lately, I've really questioned my relationship with God. I've questioned a lot of things, and I know that is hard for me to come to terms with. You know, as a Christian, you want to live your life through God, and you want to live your life in a way that you feel is right as a Christian. I know that a lot of the things that I was doing in the past weren't very Christian-like, and I know that this is a tough subject, and this one was very hard for me to come to terms with. But in the Bible, gluttony is a sin. And whenever I was binging, every time I would binge, I just felt like the worst Christian in the world. I felt like I was not worthy. I felt I would put myself down so much because of it. And I don't know, I still have a very, very hard time understanding understanding what goes on with all of that. Psychologically, I do understand the reason for binging and purging and, you know, brain patterns and all of those things. I completely understand those things, but whenever it comes to religion, spiritually, I do not understand why I was doing it. It's something that I'm still trying to come to terms with. I'm still trying to understand. So I wanted to speak a little bit more on that today because I know that is something that a lot of people do struggle with. A lot of people have a hard time with understanding why they think, you know, I can say this, for example, I would always ask myself or ask God, like, why am I going through this? Why are you putting me through this? Is there a reason behind this, a purpose? And for the longest time, I thought it was because in my family, there is a lot of addiction, and there was a lot of hate and a lot of resentment that I had built up from that. And for the longest time, and it might sound a little crazy, but for the longest time, I thought, you know, maybe I'm going through this to understand my family better, and so I could finally lose that hate for them. And I just came up with all of these scenarios in my head to why I was going through what I was going through. And it would really start to get to me and really start to bug me the more that I would binge. And as many of you know who have binged before, it's an out-of-body experience. You feel like you have no control over yourself until you are sick to your stomach, until it is too late in your mind. I felt like I had no control over my actions. I had no control over my willpower, or I had no willpower. I felt out of control. And I would pray about it for nights on end, and I could never understand why I was feeling this way, why I was doing these things, why, I could not have that control that so many people seem to have. I would watch these YouTube videos about people who went through addiction or went through, whatever trials they had gone through, and they had always made it out, or, all of a sudden they had these aha moments where it's something just clicked for them, and they stopped binging, or they stopped, their addictions, and they had not relapsed. Everything seemed to be going good. And I know in most cases that's not it. Like, there's, trial and error, people relapse, stuff like that. But people would always talk about speaking to God and hearing the voice of God, and I never understood that while I was going through this. And there have been many times, many times in my life where I know that, things have happened, and I know that is God doing his work. But no matter what, I still pray. I still try to find a way to understand, and try to find a way to, hear that voice of God, to hear whatever he needs to tell me, whatever path he's trying to lead me in. And I know it might sound crazy for a lot of people who aren't very spiritual, but everybody believes in a higher power. And whenever you feel like you have a calling, or you feel like there's something in your heart that you need to follow, everybody has that feeling, no matter what they believe in. And there's a lot of things in my life that I know, okay, this is right, this feels right in my heart. But when it comes to food, and it comes to self-judgment and the body dysmorphia, I don't understand it. And I know that I'm rambling a lot right now about this, and it might not make a whole lot of sense, but for many of you that understand what it's like to not feel like you're a good enough Christian, to not feel like you're doing things right, if you feel lost, you know what it feels like. I don't want you guys to feel like you're alone, because I completely understand what you're going through right now, and our situations might not be similar, but it's very hard to understand why things are happening at times. There's a pastor that I watch all the time, and he's the pastor of Elevation Church on YouTube. He's amazing. And I watched one of his videos, and he talked about how, people always think that the devil goes after pastors or people who, are big influencers and teachers when it comes to religion and spirituality and all of that. But the devil is after anybody who is trying to seek God. And the more that you try to seek God, the harder he works. So my number one tip is to just keep reading your Bible, keep praying, and keep doing whatever you feel like you need to do to stay close to God, and to follow in whatever path you believe that God has set out for you. I promise that even though everything's gone on with food, and like I've said, I can't seem to find the right path for me when it comes to health and fitness and all that. I can't seem to understand where this is going with my spirituality. But in so many other things in my life, I have been truly, truly blessed. And there's no other way to explain it than it being God's work. But I think that there's a season for everything, and some seasons last longer than others. some seasons seem to drag on, but I promise it will end, and I promise you will understand why everything is happening at the end of it. So with that being said, this kind of goes off a little bit, but I wanted to talk about fasting when it comes to religion. So whenever I was growing up, my family never was like big into fasting, and I just always, going through like the whole diet and fitness world and everything. Fasting to me is a way of restricting, is a way of resetting your body. It's all for, physical health. But in the Bible, I've read a lot about fasting in the Bible, and I have also read a lot about, on the internet and stuff like that, people talking about fasting. And on Friday, so there was a big thing for like everything that has been going on with this big pandemic, that people were fasting for the day. And this was a way to kind of let go of everything that has been going on and just show that you are putting your trust in God, and to give God that day to, not listen to the media, not listen to all of this stuff that's going on, have full trust in God that He has full control. So I remember my fiance asked me if we were gonna fast that day, and I was like, what? And the first thing that came to my mind was a binge. And I knew in my head, like even thinking about fasting, even questioning fasting, I just automatically want to binge. And this is how I've always been, whether it's intermittent fasting or anything. I've tried to fast before for religious purposes, but I knew in my heart that what I was fasting for was not for the right purpose. I knew that there was no way that I could fast for the right purposes when all I could think about was food, and all I could think about was me not eating, leading to me getting smaller, stuff like that. I just knew I did not have the right intentions in mind. So I've never been able to successfully complete a religious fast. So when he asked me this, I just automatically, the anxiety set in, and all of these things were just going through my head. And I did not want to let him down. I did not want to, seem like I didn't have any self-control. And he knows exactly what I go through. I tell him everything, and he's very understanding. But in my heart, I knew that if I wanted to say that I was a Christian, and I wanted to believe that I was a Christian, I knew that somehow I had to do this. I had to put whatever it was aside and just trust in God. So Friday came, and I ended up fasting for part of the morning, and it just got to the point where I felt so anxious, to the point where like I was sick to my stomach. I don't even know how to explain it, but I could just feel the tension in my body. And I told him, like, I can't do this. When I started to feel the hunger pains, and I know a lot of people, they're like, oh, like I was probably just hangry or something. But when these things happen, it's not just getting hangry. Whenever you're dealing with an eating disorder, or you have dealt with binging in the past, when you feel signs of hunger, it's like a panic starts to set in. And I've talked about this in the very beginning of my when I started Instagram, about our primal instincts, and how our brains are set up and all of that. And in a way, that's what it feels like. It feels like there is just a force within your body that is attacking you and that is driving you absolutely crazy. And I don't know any other way to explain it, but like my head started hurting and I just felt this like knot in my throat and I felt sick to my stomach. I don't even know any other way to explain it. But I ended up breaking my fast, and I cannot even explain to you guys. I felt like the biggest letdown in the world. I just hated myself. I was so disgusted with myself, and I just could not stop beating myself up. So first thing I did was I got on the internet and I went to a website of a pastor that I follow all the time. And I got on that website and I started looking up, ways to fast. And I don't know, it just kind of clicked to me that in the Bible, what the things that I have read about fasting aren't always about food. And so I started to read into some of his articles that he had on fasting. And there was one that he talks about eating disorders and fasting. And fasting can be giving up something that kind of just has a hold on you, that, kind of gets in your way, or that is something that gets in your way or blocks you from your relationship with God, or, that takes up a lot of time that isn't really benefiting you in a way. So he brought up fasting social media. So that was one thing that I did, and I talked to my fiance about it, and he was all for it. And he, all day he kept telling me that, he would help me as much as he could, but if it was that bad, that I didn't need to complete a fast. It was not worth it at that point. So I ended up fasting social media the rest of that day, and I know that it's not necessarily a fast, but throughout the day, I really tried to push back meals and extend my meal times. I tried to fast at night, eat a meal like early in the afternoon and then fast the rest of that night. And I just spent all that time reading my Bible or, talking to God, anything that I could do. And I cannot tell you guys enough how just fasting social media helped me so much. It helped, with the way that I see myself. I wasn't getting on Instagram all the time and seeing all of these fitness people and all of these beauty gurus and everything and comparing myself, because it is something that we don't realize that we do. It's so subconscious that we get on there and we don't necessarily look at somebody and think, gosh, she has a bigger butt than I do, or we don't say these things to ourselves all the time, but it's something that you can look at a picture for a second and all of these things run through your head, all of these judgments, and it's so unhealthy. And we live in a time where social media is just something that is the new norm. It's something that almost everybody has a social media account. People are always seeing other people that they wish they could look like or they wish they could be like. But it's just not healthy, and sometimes we just need a break from it. And taking that break from social media, I cannot tell you guys how much it helped me and how much I just felt so grateful for myself, for everything that I have. I felt so grateful for just the family that I have, the loved ones that I have, like everything. And I I could tell that it made a change in my mood. It made a change in my thoughts. I know that for a lot of people, social media is something that they can't just get rid of, especially if you are a business owner or you work on, with social media. It's not just something that you can delete and never get on Facebook or Instagram or anything ever again. But I feel like really evaluating what you're seeing, what you're coming in, face to face with every day on social media, it makes a huge difference. And I've talked about this in one of my blogs before, but I felt like purging my Instagram was probably the best thing that I did. I unfollowed people that I compared myself to, and I unfollowed, people who, you just see things sometimes and it's like, I don't know, like they give off a bad vibe to you in a way. I followed anybody like that, whoever made me feel like I wasn't enough. And I'm not saying like that these people personally make me feel this way, but just, looking at their pictures, me comparing myself, stuff like that. And a lot of it was hard. A lot of them, it was hard to unfollow them, but it was something that made a huge difference in my life. It made me understand that, how bad I was looking at other people and looking at their lives, and just, it made me feel like I wasn't grateful for mine, and it made me feel like I don't know, just wasn't happy. And so going through and purging all of that really made a huge impact in my life. And that is something that I definitely recommend, is just going through and purging your social media accounts and taking a break if you need to, taking a day off. I promise it won't hurt. If you need to post on social media, just get on there, post whatever you need and get off. And I promise it is so hard. It's ridiculous how hard it is, but I promise it makes a huge difference. So just doing stuff like that will help a lot. And I feel like a lot of my disordered eating patterns that I had created were from watching all of these influencers on social media and watching all of these people and just kind of copying the way that they would eat or the things that they would do. And it was very unhealthy. Even one person that I used to follow all the time, and I actually made a lot of life changes because of what she used to do. She was so slim and so pretty, and I felt like at that point, I felt like I wasn't enough. I hated the way I looked and everything, and I made these huge life changes, or well, not huge, but changes in my diet, changes in exercise, everything, so I could feel good about myself. And she had actually recently opened up about how disordered her eating patterns and exercise patterns and all that, just how bad they were and how much of a negative impact that they had on their life. And that honestly scared me. It really scared the crap out of me, because this was somebody that I was looking up to, and somebody that in a way I felt like I was trying to be like at that time. And I know that for a fact this is where these negative thought patterns and these negative habits came from. It was just really hard to come to terms with that, but that's something that you really have to think of, is is that person having an influence in your life that might be creating a lot of the destructive patterns in your life. That's just something to take into consideration. So I want to go back to the fasting. If you are a Christian, or if your religion, whatever higher power you believe in, if you feel like you're stuck, you can't find your path, or you just feel lost. Even some of the most dedicated Christians that I know have gone through this, and it's just trial and error. You're not alone. You have not been abandoned. I promise that there are people here for you. And there are just some things that we need to understand before we understand the big picture. There are little steps along the way that we have to take before we get to where we need to be, before we understand why we are where we are. I don't want you to give up on God. I don't want you to give up on whatever beliefs you have, but just understand that everything is happening for a reason. Maybe there's things that you need to change in your life, or maybe it's just a season that you just need to, be patient with, sit through it, learn lessons from it, understand it. And once that season is over, take those lessons and apply them into every part of your life that you can. All of this is a learning lesson, and I promise that all of this will pass. It just takes time, it takes patience. This is something that will help you understand a lot of things that happen later on in life. So just don't give up, keep pushing through. I promise you are good enough and you are worth it. If you guys have any other questions or anything for me, then comment down below. I have my email listed as well. I am a health and life coach too. If you guys are interested in that, I am open to seeing clients. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great day. Stay safe out there. Please stay inside. And I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great day.